Welcome to The Hidden Human, the podcast where we explore the stories behind the business leader. Get ready to hear insights from business leaders speaking candidly about how they became who they are today and the lessons they learned along the way. And now, here's your host, leadership coach and speaker, Kelly Meerbott.
Welcome to the space where we reveal our personal humanity to reconnect with our shared humanity. Let's begin our conversation with Jerome Myers, Chief Inspiration Officer. And I have to say, in the first 10 minutes, I was already inspired. So I'm excited about this conversation. Welcome, Jerome. How are you?
Amazing, Kelly. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So if I were a 6-year-old child and you were going to explain to me in a way I could understand what a Chief Inspiration Officer is, what would you say?
Ooh, that's a really good one. Because I have this conversation with my daughters from time to time, and they say, Daddy, well, how do you make money? And it's like, I have meetings all day and I talk to people about their problems. And she says, I could do that. I say, yeah, you're a good problem solver too. So if I was having a conversation with a 6-year-old, I would say, I listen and I ask questions and I help people get clarity on the situation that they're in. See, a lot of people tell themselves stories and those stories can be fiction. And what we want to do is get them out of the fiction and get them into the nonfiction section. We want them to live in their truth. And so that's why we spend all this time on Red Pill and Matrix and a lot of the other things that people my age and maybe a little bit older or plus or minus 5 or 10 years get really excited about. So that would be the answer to the question, which would probably make more questions with a 6-year-old.
Yeah. So of course it's always why. I love kids. We don't have children by choice, but they're always speaking truth in such an unvarnished way, which is so refreshing because when you get to be our age and business owners, there's a lot of posturing that goes on, and with them, it's just like, it is what it is. So let's give our shout out to your lovely children. So what are their names and ages?
Yeah, Kaya and Leah. Kaya will be 13 this weekend. Unbelievable. Leah's 10.
Happy You Day. That is so
Yeah.
okay. And Leah's 10.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So usually things are defined in our lives between 8 and 14. Could you point to a defining moment for us that happened in that time frame or even earlier that informed what you do today? Because I find that there are things that happen in your childhood that create the leader you are today.
Yeah. So the place will be a little bit earlier.
Okay.
So my mom stayed home with me when I was young. Actually, she stayed home with me throughout the whole thing, except for a very short window. And Thursdays, we would play outside on the blanket. And this was before preschool. It was probably 4. Yeah, it was 4. And so every Thursday, the trash truck would come down the main street. We were the third house on the right in the cul-de-sac. And so I could hear it on the main street. They would throw the trash in and he'd come down. They make the right on the street. And of course, I'd be peeking around the corner because I didn't want them to see me, but I wanted to watch. And so Lonnie would hop off the truck, throw the first one in, come down to the next one, throw the trash in. Then he'd get to mine. And it was like art. It was Kelly, it was art. He'd hop off. He'd go to the end. He'd pop the lid off. It'd spin around like a top, fall flat. He'd do a little pirouette, dump the trash in the trash can or in the back of the trash truck, and then spin it back to the curb. It never fell over. And then he'd look at me. He'd give me a little wink in the handgun. And if you can imagine a kid doing Baby Shark right now, that was me pulling the lever, trying to get him to crush the trash. And without fail, he would always pull the trash. And on this particular day, I would look at my mom and I would say, Mom, I want to be a trash man when I grow up. She'd say, baby, don't you like your Jordache jeans? Don't you like your Nikes? Don't you like your Guess shirt? And I was like, yeah. She said, well, if you choose to be a trash man, you might not be able to afford that for yourself or for your kids one day if you have some. And I said, well, Lonnie's at home every day when his kids get home from school and he gets to work outside and he gets to work the big machine. I want to be a trash man. She Said, yeah, but when you choose your profession, you need to choose one that's going to afford the lifestyle you want to live. And
Mhm.
you could see all of the innocence being sucked out of me as that thought that I couldn't just follow my passion was taken from my soul. And
Wow.
so fast
Wow.
forward to senior year, I go talk to Mr. Ayers, who was my physics teacher. I say, hey, Mr. Ayers, I think I want to solve problems with people, but I'm okay at this math and science thing. What do you think I should do? Because I don't know what I should study in college. And he said, well, Jerome, you'd be good at both. Problem solving is problem solving, but a psychologist or sociologist makes about half what an engineer would make starting out. And so then I went to 4-year-old Jerome in the yard with mom and say, oh, well, I guess I'm going to be an engineer. And so I went and did that. And what happened from there is I knew that I didn't want to be an engineer. Sophomore year, I knew I didn't want to be an engineer. And so I matriculated and I did all the things you were supposed to do, got my job, got the starting salary, got all this stuff. But I knew that it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing.
Mm.
And I had the aptitude, I had the ability, but that's what it was. What I was supposed to be doing. I was supposed to be taking out the trash. I was supposed to be solving the problems and dealing in the stuff that most people don't want to touch. So I
Mhm.
found my way back, but I had to find it back not as the person that was taking the trash can and putting it in a trash truck, but the one going to everybody's business or home and helping them work through the stuff that nobody else wants to talk about, the stuff that most people call trash.
That's fascinating. I mean, what a great story. See, this is why I love this podcast because I get to hear stories like that. And ironically, and you had no way of knowing this, but because of the holiday last week, our trash pickup was recycling was Friday and trash was Saturday. So Saturday, I'm outside decorating the house for the holidays, and here come the garbage collectors, right? And I love watching them. Never met anybody else who loves watching them, but there are cars parked on either side of it or narrow street, and they're backing in to get this big dumpster. And I'm standing there watching them like, oh my
Just gonna
God,
hit
like,
it.
how are you doing this without, I mean, obviously they're directing each other and all of that, but that's a massive truck. And they didn't, thank God they didn't hit my car. But like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of magic and passion to doing that. And, I think no matter what you do, as long as you have pride and you add your own magic to it, it doesn't matter if you're picking up the trash or being an engineer or the head of a Fortune 1000 in Silicon Valley. So that's a great story. So, okay, when did you start your own business? When did that happen?
Yeah, I left to do the full-time thing in 2016. I had the fortune of building a $20 million division for Fortune 550. Started on January 13th of 2015. And by September, we had 175 people on my team. By the end of the year, $20 million, 30% profit margins. I get a phone call on December 24th that goes something like this. Hey, Jerome, you and I have been going back and forth for a while, and I've made a decision. We're going to lay half of them off. I'm like, nah, that's not the right answer. Like, I called to inform you of a decision. This isn't a negotiation. I was like, yeah, but this isn't the right answer. We need these folks. There's going to be opportunity for them. And we went back and forth for a couple more minutes. And he's like, hey, man, it's the Christmas Eve. I'm going to go spend the rest of the year with my family. I'll talk to you in the new year. I was like, oh, I'm the guy. I'm the Axeman. And I, I was like, I don't know what to do because I've never had to do this before. 2009 had come and gone. I wasn't impacted. And so I went and tried to figure out how to make the most subjective way to figure out who stayed and left, right? Because that's what you do when you're not cold and like it actually matters to you. And I didn't sleep, I didn't eat.
Yeah.
The holidays was kind of wrecked for me from that point forward. But I go there, Kelly, simply because I want the listeners to hear that I gave up my agency because what I said was they made me. And I know this is a conversation about leadership.
Mhm.
And the fact of the matter was, they didn't make me do anything.
Right.
I chose to participate in it. And I didn't get that until about March of the following year. And then you fast forward to around Thanksgiving, a couple of days before Thanksgiving. I call the team in and say, hey guys, I don't know what's going to happen between now and the end of the year, but I don't want you to spend all your money on Black Friday, right? Because I don't know what will happen if you don't have any money. You got to go find a place to get new employment because nothing happens between Thanksgiving and the end of the year for the most part. And what I've learned having some real estate is most people can't afford not making income after about 2 weeks. And so I was trying to caution them, but I felt all of my leadership just kind of ooze out through the bottom of my shoes and onto the floor. And I knew that I couldn't stay there. And so that's when I made a decision that I was going to have to go out and be on my own because one, I knew that I had agency. I knew that I got the opportunity to choose to participate in whatever I was told I should do, but I
Mhm.
wanted the buck to stop with me. And so I left and started the full-time entrepreneurship thing after all of the years of kicking the can down the road because I didn't want to do the pay cut and didn't want to do this and I didn't want to do all the things that most of us are scared to do, even though we know that it's what we should do.
I mean, it's so interesting because this is the first time we've met, and how I always find that there are so many similarities, and God, the universe, whatever you believe in, and that's the God of your reality, will put people in your life that you need or very similar to. And I was in corporate till 2009, and very similarly to you, I'm sure, made a lot of money for the corporation and got the call. Actually, it was not a call, it was a tap on my shoulder, January 20th, 2009 at 9 a.m. And the only reason I know that is because it was the day Obama was inaugurated. And I was like queuing up my laptop to watch Aretha with the hat and all this stuff. And I get, Terry wants to see you in his office. And my boss is sitting there with a manila envelope with my name on it. And he says, you have 10 days to review this with your attorney and sign it. And I looked at him and I said, wait, what? And he said, you have 10 days to review this with your attorney and sign it. And I knew exactly what it was, obviously, because um, 2 weeks prior in the front page of the Wall Street Journal, it said 30,000 jobs were going to be cut from this organization. I didn't
Mm.
think it was going to be me because I was a top salesperson. So I said to him,
Okay.
why? And he
Yeah.
said, we put your numbers through a corporate budget matrix, which to this day, 14 years later, nobody in corporate knows what that is when I mention it. So obviously it was made up. And he said, you didn't make the cut. And it was the first time I ever pushed back on a boss in this way. And I said, that's bullshit. And you know it. And he looked at me and he said, you have 10 days to review this with your attorney and sign it. And then I was walked, which I had never been walked before either. Um, but what's really interesting is 2 years later, I wrote him a thank you note saying what I thought was the worst day of my life is actually the best day of my life, because it launched me into what I was called to do, which is executive coaching. And here we are 14 years later. This was not part of the plan, Jerome, and I'm sure it wasn't part of the plan for you, but there's the old Yiddish saying, man plans, God laughs. And I constantly hear universal laughter when I think I'm in charge. Not at all. So, okay. What's a day-to-day experience like for you? Like and as entrepreneurs, that's a hard question because every day is different, but average day. What's an average day for you?
Yeah. So a weekday, a work day is a 4 to 5 a.m. rise. Um, outside time, usually an hour to an hour and 30 minutes of jogging, some type of cardio. Come back with some meditation, journaling, reading. Uh, and then after that, we get into weights. And so we'll do weights from 9 to 10 or something like that. And then we'll start calls and we'll do 4 to 6 coaching calls a day. And then some days we'll have a podcast mixed in. And then by 5, we're usually wrapping up and preparing for whatever is going to happen in the evening. We work really hard not to do anything work related after 5, though.
Me too. I mean, it's so funny. Our days are very similar. So 4:30 rise, I do RPM, which rise P meditate. So I go to the bathroom, get back in my bed with my noise canceling headphones on, 30-minute meditation, get my clothes on. I'm clipped in at a spin class around 5:45, do that for an hour. And depending on what day of the week it is. So like today I lifted, but I didn't do cardio. Tomorrow will be cardio, no lifting. And then Thursday is lifting and cardio, and Friday's just lifting, which getting older, and I'm 46, stretching is so important, and I'm not doing that. But it's all about designing your day. And I find that the most successful entrepreneurs, the most successful CEOs really are intentional about their start date, the start time, and how they start their days, and I'll tell you, there are some days when 4:30 comes way too fast, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to get out of bed. But I know when I miss that ritual, it just does not, my day is not the same. Do you find that as well?
1000%. And it only comes too fast if you did something wrong on
The
the night
night
before.
before? Yep. Usually it is. But yeah, so okay. So where did you learn that ritual? Like for me, it's just what works for me. And I also know at the end of the day, because of the nature of the work we do, it can be emotionally draining. And I'll be like, yeah, I'm not going to the gym.
1000%. Yeah.
So getting it done in the morning
So
here.
where did I learn? That's really interesting. So in college, I played football, and we would have winter workouts, and they would be 4:30 because they didn't want anybody to have the excuse of they can't make it because of class or this thing or that thing or work, whatever. They're like, okay, we'll fix all of you. Here it is. And I just found that after the workout, nobody bothered me. So if I had homework or some other stuff I wanted to get done, it was quiet and there weren't any distractions. And so it left me in a place where I could be extremely productive. Now, there's a temptation to dive right into work. And I did that for a period. But what I found was I felt drained when I did that versus making the investment in myself. I mean, some people think it's ludicrous to spend 4 hours on yourself a day trying to fill your cup to make sure that you can pour out into people the way that they are compensating you very well to do. If this concept that you can just pour and keep pouring without any filling is silly
Yeah.
at best.
Again, so many similarities. I mean, I always tell my clients that there are two pillars to leadership, and if they can master these two, everything else will fall into place. And the first is energy management. And I know you've heard this, Jerome, where people are like, oh, Jerome, you got to refill your cup. I don't believe that. I believe that you have to be as close to 100% as possible. People get your overspill, right?
Right.
So the 100 is our reserve. And if you dip below, the 100% mark, you need to rise up and make sure that they get the overspill. And then the second pillar is emotional regulation. Are you going in with your central nervous system in line, in a relaxed body and calm, observant mind? And if not, you need to go and get yourself settled and regulated and then reapproach. Because I think too many people, whether it's in corporate or due to burnout, which is a form of trauma, don't take care of themselves and then figuratively bleed all over other people. Like, hey, Jerome, on Christmas Eve, you're going to have to be the axe man. I mean, that's just not humane. And you're right. I mean, when you invest in yourself like that, it just pays dividends over and over and over again.
It's the
And
biggest
I don't know if
investment you can get a return
yeah,
on for sure.
yeah, and it just is. And I find that ever since I've done that, like my practice has exploded, and us as coaches, we can't expect our clients to do anything we're not doing ourselves. So I love that you model leadership and are in such an alignment with what you say and what you do. That's learned behavior. So where did you learn that? Where did that form of integrity, how was that modeled for you?
Yeah, my dad, right? He was a military man. He got out of high school at 17, went into the Marines and did that for a while, then got out, then went into the army and did that. And so I watched him. He worked Carolina half days. And, you're in Philly, you might not know what that is, but you pick the 12 hours that you're going to be at work. And so during the winter, I saw him at dark, right? He would leave at before 6 a.m. and he'd come back after 6 p.m. And I'd have to wait for him for dinner. And that would be the place where we had a conversation. But I knew what he was doing. And he used to try to encourage me to do stuff. And I didn't want to do it. He's like, hey man, you need to read every day. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Just give me a ball, or I got homework. I'll do homework. I don't want to read a book. But every day, if you chose to get up, you would see him in his quiet time reading a book. You would see him kind of just staring off into the distance or staring out the window, doing the meditation thing. At that time, I had no idea what it was, but I saw him do it. And he was here this past weekend, and he's still doing the same thing. And he's like 65 now, doing the exact same thing. And I'm just like, it works, and it absolutely works. And that for me was that, because we already talked about the two little people that just mean the whole world to me. They don't listen to what I say as much as they watch and emulate what I do. And so
Yeah.
I had a superhero that I wanted to be like, and um that's where I got the modeling, and I'm eternally grateful for that, for sure.
What's dad's name?
Jerome.
Jerome. Well, thank you for your service, Jerome. And again, I'm smiling because my husband did 20 years in the Navy. He went in when he was 17.
Yeah.
And his mom tells a story about how she signed him in and was crying the whole time because,
Ouch.
I mean, you're sending your son off to the military. You don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, and now coaching the military, it's the integrity there is infused in their DNA. And just like your dad, that's great. But you also prove another point that kids don't do it. They learn what you show them, and it's always funny when I see parents or work with parents and they're doing one thing and saying another, and the kids are picking up on what they're doing, which is what they don't want them to do. And I'm like, it's because you're out of alignment. Like, so this is just, I'm loving this conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really enjoying you and getting to know you. So what, tell me about your unique training method. Like, how did you come up with that? And what does it comprise of? And whatever you want to share is fine. Like, obviously that's your product. So I don't want to give it for free, but let's give it what it is.
I think it is meant to be shared.
Good.
And for the folks who aren't ready for that level of investment, hopefully this can help them on their journey. And so how did I come up with it being the guinea pig? I am the guinea pig.
Mhm.
There's nothing that I ask clients to try that I haven't done on myself.
Me too.
The ultimate experimentation. And so our model is called the red pill, and it's a model for a centered life. I think balance is a fallacy. I don't think people can actually achieve it. And if you do achieve it, you're not making progress, or you're not doing anything, because if you look at a scale and it has 0 on it, there's nothing on it. And if you balance your weight and you try to move forward, you won't make any progress without coming out of balance. And so we want people to be centered. That way they can continue to go. And so it's got 6 levels. But the way that I like to describe it is we do 4 things. We reduce your stress, we improve your health, we drive or increase your wealth, and then we help you create a lasting legacy. Now, that gets broken down into the actual 6 levels. And so the first 3 levels, self-image, relationship, and work, they're all tied to reducing stress. I feel like every piece, part, idea of stress that's in our life is in those 3 areas. We got conflict with ourselves, we got conflict with other people, we got conflict with the work that we have to do. And if you can turn down the volume on the stress, then you can help people stop doing the self-destructive habits.
Yep.
because they're trying to soothe, they're self-medicating instead of actually dealing with the thing. And so we force people to deal with the stressor. From there, we can move up to health. In health, there's a bunch of different components. But what I will say is, if you aren't doing the self-destructive habits, then we can add on the things that we've been talking about, like meditation, exercise, diet, um, affirmations, and some of these other what I think are adders, amplifiers. But there's no reason, from my perspective, to do that if you're destroying what you already have. And so we want to help people not destroy and then make progress forward. After health, we want to move up to prosperity. And in the prosperity, there's three things: time, talent, and treasures. We want you to be able to create abundance in each one of those. There's no reason for you to have treasures and no time. There's no reason for you to have talent and not be able to use it to get treasure. And
Mhm.
so we help people figure out what those are, and then we measure the growth of them through earned income over the course of a year and net worth increase. And
Gosh.
then most people think they've arrived when they get through level 5 because they've self-actualized. They've got money, they've got time, they've got the ability to pick and choose what they do. And a lot of times they can do what they want, where they want, with who they want. And they might not be able to do it for as long as they want. But for most people, they feel like they have freedom. And then something funny starts happening. They start asking questions. Is this it? Is there more? And when they start asking those questions, that's when we know that we've got them to the place where they're looking for fulfillment. And so level 6 is significance. And this is you can describe it with a bunch of different words. If I was talking to a 6-year-old, I would say, this is how you become immortal, right? Because they know that all their superheroes never pass away, right? They live on forever. This is where you create a legacy, or this is where you're able to pass on your generational wealth. The thing about significance is it has to be from what you mentioned earlier, the overflow, right? So when you create the abundance and the prosperity field, time, talent, treasures, then you can share with other people. What I found is there's so many folks who are trying to be generous and are being generous to their detriment. So they're never able to actually achieve prosperity. And mainly because they've got an unhealthy relationship with the prosperity. They don't feel worthy of it. So they feel like they got to give it away. Whole another rabbit hole we won't go down. But just know that significance, you got to have a place of abundance before you can reach that level.
Yeah, and I think in our society, well, I know I'll drop the I think. In our society, scarcity mentality is pushed through marketing, through, other kinds of doctrine that are just not true. They're simply stories that have been told over and over again, and a belief is just a thought you keep thinking. So it's our job to untangle those. And I mean, I'm curious, who trained you as a coach? Because a lot of the language you're using are things that I say. Like I beta test everything on myself first. I will never ask my clients to do something that I haven't done myself. I don't recommend anybody whose work I haven't experienced firsthand. I mean, every book that I recommend, I've read it, and I probably read it twice or three times and put it into practice. So I'm just curious, like, who trained you as a coach?
I don't have any formal training.
I don't have any formal training. It's just lived experience.
It
I
is.
love that. I love that. I think uh, some of these certifying bodies, I won't call them out in our conversation, are okay. But I think lived experience is really the way to go, because you have the actual experience that you can speak to, and the learning that you draw from. But I love the 6 levels of significance. I think that's really powerful. So I was trained by Sue Chandler and a woman named Charisse McCrory, and we all use that language. I don't know if you've heard of Steve Hardison. He's part of that group as well. They're all really powerful coaches, and none of them are certified, which is really interesting, because Steve Hardison is probably the most famous coach you've never heard of.
Wow.
Like he's like up there with Tony Robbins. I mean, his his fees start at $250,000 up front and go to $1 million,
I
depending. And
love it.
you meet him at his house for 100 hours. And if you quit, he takes the balance and donates it to a charity of your choice. If he fires you, he takes the balance and donates to a charity of his choice. And he's been doing this for years. So yeah, I mean, I love this learned experience. So what was, a lot of people are talking about resilience, right? So my own story of resilience is hopefully coming out in TED Talk. I don't know when. They've had it since the end of July, and we're just waiting for them to approve and upload it. But my own story is I survived 3 sexual assaults in college, and
Oh no.
healed from that and use that in my work to help others, right? And what I found about resilience, because it's this buzzword now, and apparently it's a vertical in management consulting now, resiliency, is about falling down and getting back up, right? And over time, that kind of time span shortens. So like when I got laid off in corporate, I was face down in the mud for 7 days, right? Now I had something really kind of horrific happen a couple of weeks ago where I was like, all right, 24 hours later, I'm like, okay, I'm done. So what would you say, besides the defining moment that you talked about in corporate, we had to lay off all of those people? What was there? Describe a time when you were like, literally life kicked you in the teeth, and how that impacted you and caused a shift in a positive way.
Yeah. There's 2
Okay.
that I really, one's more emotional than the other. I'll go with the less emotional one. And
No,
so
no.
yeah,
I want to hear
yeah.
the emotional one.
Okay. Well, you're the host, so I will follow directions. And so when I was in the 8th grade, during football season, my mother would take me to a high school football game. It's my treat. And so I was playing middle school football and had a teammate who been a classmate since we were in the 3rd grade. He actually, I'll never forget, he was shooting rubber bands and shot me in the eye. And that was the day we became friends. But anyway, on this particular Friday at school, I told my teammate, hey, I'll call you before I go to the game and you can go with us. And so I forget the call and we go to the game, and I get back. I think the team we were rooting for won, and I go to sleep, and I wake up the next morning. I get a phone call and they said he's gone. I was like, who's gone? You're like, you didn't hear? I was like, no, what are you talking about? It's like, Jarrell's dead. And I said, what do you mean? It's like, I don't really know the story, but evidently there was some alcohol and there was a game of Russian roulette and he lost. And all I could think was I didn't call him. I I didn't call him. Like if I would have called him, then that couldn't have happened because he would have been with me. And like how how could I not honor my word? Like how could I not have called? How could I have not been there for him? And so for me, not honoring your word is a life or death situation now. And so if I tell somebody I'm going to do something, then I do it. I've been in therapy, I've been in with coaches, and they've said, "Hey, we're going to do this, or we're going to do that," and then they don't do it. And I'm like, "You don't understand. Like this is a life or death situation if you're in the right situation.
Yeah.
What are you doing?"
Yeah. On this,
And so to this day,
I'm literally the same way. If I say I'm going to go do something, I will literally kill myself trying to do it or renegotiate that commitment. I mean, it's words create our reality. And if you can't honor your word, you really don't have anything else left to give, honestly. Like right before you and I got on, I opened a relationship with a new client, And I said, I will get you the contract and the invoice immediately. And like 3:53, hit send, and she got it, and it's that's something I always tell my clients. I'm like, if you tell me you're going to have something to me by 5 o'clock on Friday Eastern Standard Time, and it hits my inbox at 5:01, you're out of alignment, you're out of integrity. And some people may think that's harsh. I don't, and I'm in full agreement with you. I think it's a life or death situation, because there is too much double speak in our world. I think there's a war on integrity,
For sure.
where people are saying things and then apologizing. Now, apologizing, I'm all about that and keeping my side of the street clean. But an apology without behavior change is a manipulation. And there is
1000%.
way too much of that in our world. So I believe, as leaders like you do, that we need to model the behavior we expect.
If
So
we don't, who will? And so this is why self-image is the base of our conversation in our model, because you have to use alignment. I like alignment, but I will call it integrity. You have to be in integrity with
yes,
yourself before
yes,
you can hold other people accountable, right?
yes,
If you can't hold yourself accountable, how can you hold somebody else accountable? You can't. And so you get squishy on it, and then they don't deliver. And so now nobody's accountable. And if you read the good Pat Lencioni book, then there is no trust, and it just becomes a disaster.
love Patrick Lencioni. He's so great. I mean, like, all of my team building and work is out of his, 5 dysfunctions of a team. The advantage is so great. And yeah, I mean, it isn't, when I say alignment, it's shorthand for alignment with your integrity. So yeah, absolutely. But it's, and I remember, so there was Steve Hardison invited me out to be with him for a day back in 2013. And I went there, and he took me to, oh my gosh, it just flew right out of my mind what the name of the company is. But it's a big tech company that does email marketing. You probably, I mean, like, if I were to mention the name, you'd probably know. And if it hadn't slipped my mind, but he walks me in, and it's in Arizona. And there was a bank of elevators to the left, and there was a hook with a dog tag that said ego on it. And I said, "Set," and he goes, "Check your ego at the door." And we walked in, and there's a big, like, turf football like field in the middle of this building, right? Inside, and there's a big banner in black with white block letters that says, "We will do what we say we're going to do." And I can't believe I'm going to have to Google it to tell you the name of the company. But yeah, I mean, it's, and Steve was telling me, he said that is the basis of everything that we do, everything. And everything we're talking about, Jerome, is, think about what would happen if a politician did what they said they were going to do, what the world would look like. If a CEO of a Fortune 1000 company always did what he or she said, I mean, it would literally change the trajectory of the world. And it's that simple. And people are like, "Well, Kelly, it's not." No,
It is.
it is that simple. It is that simple.
Once the words leave your mouth, people are making decisions off of that. And
Yes.
so if you can't give them something solid to make the decision off of, then don't give them anything.
Yeah. Don't say it. Don't say it. I mean, I had a couple of clients or prospects who were like, "Yes, yes, send me the contract. I'm ready to get started." Send them the contract, and crickets. And I remember saying, when I was calling to follow up, like, I take you at your word, and you're out of integrity. And one of them got very upset with me for saying that. And I frankly don't really care, because
1000%.
when people get defensive, you and I both know, as coaches, we've hit a nerve, and we're most likely right. And I'm probably the only person that has said to him or her, you're out of integrity, and it's true. It's so true.
And they
So,
will be
okay,
stuck where they are because they can't receive the feedback.
exactly. Exactly. So, what kind of legacy do you want to leave for your two lovely daughters?
Yeah, it's so much bigger than them. I I've made a pretty abrupt stop on things that don't allow women to be a part of. So I won't build anything or participate in things that don't allow women in. Right.
So
And
give me an
so
example.
mastermind groups where it's just for men.
Yep.
I I don't believe in that anymore. I believe that women can bring something to the table. And if the reason why women can't be in the room is because the men won't pay attention or they won't be open because they feel like they've got to be in this macho mode because a woman's there,
Hmm.
then we probably have the wrong people.
Hmm.
And like that's just a simple example because I think there's some really good organizations, but they've taken that approach, and I can't become a member as a result of it because I don't want them to not be able to have the opportunity to walk in a room, even if they don't want to go in. I want them to be able to walk in the. Uh,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I just want to end suffering. Like that's a legacy that I want to leave,
Mhm.
but specific for them. And I mean, it's not just them, it's all women. I
Yeah.
want them to have the opportunity to not be boxed out because of what they were born with. Like that's just silly.
It is silly. It is silly, and thank you for that. We appreciate that. And similarly, for me and my own business, and I'm hoping that the audience that is listening to this will take these ideas and implement them because they're not hard. It's just, for me, I made a decision that I was only going to have vendors that worked with my business, like my attorney, my accountants, my business development, who are women or members of historically marginalized communities. So,
Wow.
my accountant is fantastic. Her name is Sharon Hodges. She's out of Illinois. She's a Black woman, and she is the first person who has ever made taxes fun. Had no idea.
That's
Every other
impossible.
member, right? I know it's crazy. But yeah, it's really that simple to put your money where your mouth is and just do these kinds of things where you say, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. And by the way, the name of the company I was telling you about with Steve Hardison is Infusionsoft. So
Oh, they're
yeah,
huge.
yeah, they're huge, and they do what they say they're going to do. And that's why they're huge, because they are in alignment with their integrity. So, couple rapid fire questions if you're open to that, Jerome. And
Yeah,
honestly, I could talk to you for hours, but I think we'd lose some audience listeners. So hopefully you'll come back and we can have
absolutely.
some more conversations like this because it's fantastic. But okay, what's your favorite comfort food?
Oh, I don't want to say this on a
Come
recording.
on.
I love, and I don't know if this counts as food, but I love turtles, right? I love the chocolate, pecans, and caramel. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh,
could crush a whole bag by
oh yeah.
myself
Yeah,
without anybody or thinking about sharing with anybody.
sure. I can, you know what? It's not my favorite comfort food, but I can go there with you. I could probably turtle for turtle with you. But yeah, that's awesome. Okay, what songs are on your playlist?
I've been listening to the Black Panther soundtrack, and I don't pretend to be able to pronounce the majority of the songs that I listen to, but there's like 3 tracks that I will listen to on repeat for an hour, especially when I'm running,
Mhm.
and it it's it just feels magical. And so now it's just like taking me on this journey to find out more about like African drums and
Mm,
even some of the Hispanic music where like they're singing in Spanish, and like my Duolingo training isn't fast enough to actually comprehend the words that they're singing, but I feel like I'm closer to the Spanish speaking community when I'm listening to those songs. But I just love the rhythms, I love the beats, I love the flows. And so that's been on repeat here since we took the girls to watch that the
This is
opening
Wakanda
weekend.
Forever, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we just saw that. I thought it was breathtaking. I mean, just ugh, that and Woman King was really moving for
Oh
me.
my gosh, that was
Uh,
so aggressive. So aggressive.
but it was good. It
It
was
was good. I
yeah.
don't like to see I it's a personal bias. I don't like to see women as warriors. I think they should be protected
Mm,
um, by men instead of men using their force to hurt women.
mhm.
But I understand the story. And I understand that some are warriors. My little one's a warrior. She will run into battle to overtake any wrongdoers. But as long as I'm around, she doesn't have to do that.
That's Leah. Is that Leah?
That's Leah.
Tell her from one warrior woman to another. Thank I'm my name actually in Gaelic means warrior woman, which makes sense because I'm always like heading into battle. But yeah, I understand the bias and I hear you. I just thought it was just beautiful. And Viola Davis, of course, is just a
Yeah.
breathtaking actor, and all the women in that were just so powerful. Okay. So what books are on your nightstand?
None. I do not read in bed.
Okay.
I will not read in bed.
Okay.
I I've been going through and going back through a couple of books. One is Sizing People Up by Robin Drake.
Okay.
And then there's another one called $100 Million Offers by Alex Hermosi.
Mhm.
Those two books have been the most profound books that I've looked at in 2022. And mainly it's because it's the things that my clients are fighting with, right? How do
Mhm.
I gain trust? How do I get it fast? How do I know if I should trust somebody else? And Alice's book is all about helping people come up with offers that compel people, or what he says is make people feel stupid for not buying, right? And
Mhm.
so for a person who is making a transition, doesn't see themselves as a salesperson, which is integral to being an entrepreneur from my perspective. How do you create something where you don't feel like you have to sell it to the client or the potential client? And so those two things I think are the magic.
So it was $100 million offers, and what was the other one?
Sizing people up.
Sizing people up. Okay, I'll have to check those out. Right now I'm revisiting Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, which is
So Robin Drake is a FBI hostage. Well, he's not hostage. He was a handler for Russian spies. And so very similar like writing style as Chris.
love that. Love that. Okay, what are you most grateful for in this moment right now?
This moment, you've
Oh,
created space. You've asked very thought provoking questions for me. And I think you've created space for me to share openly things that I don't think most of us are willing to talk about, especially not in a space where we're trying to present ourselves in the best light so that people may be interested in finding out more about us and what we do.
yeah.
We stay away from the humanity and talk the marketing messages and agitate the pain and make people feel inadequate so that they got to go do the thing to feel like they have achieved what they need to achieve. And no, we've had a genuine exchange, and I think you see the humanity in me, and I certainly see it in you.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I'm just a reflection of you, and it's just been such a joy. And I always call these things, these meetings like God winks, and again, the God is the God of your reality. But I always feel like, he, she, it is going, I got you. I'm gonna put Jerome Myers in your life. Here you go. What a
Here we
gift.
are.
Okay, so Jerome, how do people get a hold of you if they want to engage you?
Yeah, the best place to go is jeromemyers.co, and there you can find everything: socials, podcasts, free giveaways, all the stuff is there. And it's just like you can pick your rabbit hole and go down whichever journey you want to.
Yeah, and a plug for all coaches. Coaching is a great holiday gift. Hanukkah,
Oh,
Kwanzaa, Christmas. It's a great gift that keeps on giving.
it
Just a
can
thought.
change the life of somebody who you really love. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
it really can. It really can. Thank you so much. I mean, thank you so much. I'm really like, such a great human. And thank you to our audience for listening. It's our intention on Hidden Human to inspire you to go out and have authentic conversations to deepen the connections in your life. Thank you so much to everyone, and make it a great day.
You've been listening to The Hidden Human, the stories behind the business leader. If you've enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. To learn more about Kelly and the services she provides, visit youloudandclear.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.